What's going on, everyone? Welcome, Manna Church. Welcome to another Manna Online experience. It's your boy, Pastor M, and guess what? Today is a very special day. You picked a great day to join us because today, Manna Church is turning 50 years old. That's right, Manna Church is 50 years old. That's 50 years of doing ministry, 50 years of forcefully advancing the kingdom of God, and 50 years of making it hard for people to go to hell. We have a very special message today, and we'll hear from some pillars in Manna Church's history. But before we get into today's service, let's kick it over to Manna Worship as they lead us in a time of worship through song.
Lift our voices this morning. Oh, our Father everlasting, the all-creating one, God Almighty, through your Holy Spirit, conceiving Christ the Son, Jesus our Savior. I believe in God our Father, I believe in Christ the Son, I believe in the Holy Spirit, our God is three in one. I believe in the resurrection, that we will rise again, for I believe in the name of Jesus. You on Jesus, our judge and our defender, suffered and crucified. Forgiveness is in you. Descended into darkness, you rose in glorious light. Seated high. Come on, lift it up. I believe in God our Father, I believe in Christ the Son, I believe in the Holy Spirit, our God is three in one. I believe in the resurrection, that we will rise again, for I believe in the name of Jesus. I believe in you. I believe you rose again. Oh, I believe that Jesus Christ is Lord. Come on, do you believe that this morning? Lift up your voice, we believe it. Yeah, I believe in you. I believe you rose again. I believe that Jesus Christ is Lord. I believe in life eternal, I believe in the virgin birth, I believe in the saints' communion, and in your holy church. I believe in the resurrection, when Jesus comes again, for I believe in the name of Jesus. I believe in God our Father, I believe in Christ the Son, I believe in the Holy Spirit, our God is three in one. I believe
Welcome back to Manna Online. If you're just joining us, it is Manna's 50th. Yes, we turned 50 years old today. And if you are a first-time guest, you picked a great Sunday to be with us. We're so glad that you're here. You can let us know that you're here by texting the word guest to the number that you see on your screen. And maybe you've been watching for some time, maybe you've joined us for Manna Online before, but you haven't yet let us know that you've been part of our experience. We want you to do the very same thing. You can text guest to the number that you see on your screen. And if you're joining us on Manna Online on the website, you can click the button underneath this video that says first time guest. And hear me, you're not signing up for anything. We don't want to spam you. We're not going to blow up your email, but we just have a team that wants to connect with you and see how we can get you connected and plugged in with the body. We've only been able to do what we've done as a church for 50 years because of people like you who live and give generously. We want to continue our time of worship today with the giving of our tithes and offering. So if you currently give online through the web or through the Manna Church app, you can continue to do so. If you would like to give today online, you can do so via PayPal by texting the word manna to the number that you see on your screen. And if you're a check writer, it's all good. You can make it out to Manna Church and drop it off or mail it to our Cliffdale site here in the Fayetteville-Fort Bragg area. Let's pray over our offering real quick. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the offering that is given today. We ask that you bless it, that you multiply it for the furthering of your kingdom here in the Fayetteville-Fort Bragg area, all across the military highway and to the ends of the earth. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Manna Church, we are just about ready to jump into today's message. But before we do, let's check out a few video announcements.
Oh, hey Manna Church. I thought I'd stop by and let you know that summer small groups are about to start, and we're kicking things off with Small Groups Sunday on June 12th. Leaders, if you're new in a group and need help, let us know at smallgroups@manna.church. If you've completed the leader step and are starting a new group, go to the small groups page and submit your idea. If you need any help figuring things out, just send us an email and we're happy to help. All group registration is due by June 8th, so don't wait. And I'll see you at Small Group Sunday.
Hey Manna fam, I'm DJ, I'm the Outreach Director at Executive Place, and today we are in the Dream Center warehouse located at the Cliffdale site. Behind me we have a team of highly motivated serve team members assembling a food boxes that will go out to anywhere in need in the community. We are able to do this because of your generous and faithful giving during the rock, and it's because of your generous and faithful giving that we are able to do this. The Lord has blessed us through your giving, and we are able to bless the community through providing food that eliminates or reduces food insecurity and hunger. The food is distributed all throughout this region as far as we can reach wherever there's need. It is just a magnificent way for us to come together, be the hands and feet of Christ, and meet need within our community. And we could not do it without you.
Hey there, Manna Online. I'm really grateful that you're here, and I want to encourage you to reach out and connect with us. Manna Online is a great option, and it's one that we created to allow those that call Manna Church home to stay connected, to stay up to date with the weekend services. But this really can't be your only time with us. Christians were made to be together. we're better together. And life change really does happen in the context of small groups. So next week, and actually in announcements, we're going to talk about having small group Sunday. We're going to have that at all of our sites. And if you're a regular member of Manna Online and you live anywhere close to where we're gathering together, make it a point to find a small group. If not, we have some great small groups that are online, or maybe it's time you considered hosting a small group. As you're going to hear today, the legacy of Manna Church is people. People joining with other people and together seeing God do amazing things as we purpose to gather together all across the military highway. Don't do life alone. Let us help you with that. Whatever you need, you can email contact@manna.church, and we got you covered. So this is a special weekend and a special message that's a little different. I want to talk to you today about Manna Church's 50 years. It's our 50th birthday. The dates might vary some, but Manna Church was founded in a house on Hay Street in Fayetteville, North Carolina 50 years ago in early June of 1972. I want to talk about legacy. But to do that, you need to meet two pivotal characters in our story, Pastor Jerry and Pastor Michael. There are a number of characters, a number of people who shaped the future of Manna Church. I could use all of our time together talking about them. There are so many heroes on whose shoulders my generation stands. I could name Jimenez, Rodriguez, Vaughn, Borick, Schmaltz, Hansen, Cruz, and on and on and on. The names of these people. Now I know that's what makes our church special. It's that we believe that the church is people. So what is it that makes Manna Church so great? The people, of course. But without two people, Pastor Jerry, Pastor Michael, I'm not sure the way forward would have brought us to where we are today. Said really plainly, really clearly, the superstar is the Holy Spirit. He did this, but he used these two more than most. So I want to start by introducing you to the founder of Manna Church, and his name is Jerry Daley. In the summer of 1972, there was a Christian teaching center that was run by a fellow named Curry Vaughn. But Curry was a chaplain, and he'd just gotten orders, so they found someone to run it.
I was just graduating from seminary, and I used to come back from, I was living in California, and I was in and out of Vietnam. I was a pilot at that time. And then I gone to seminary, and coming back to Rocky Mount, my hometown, I prayed for the stockbroker, and he moved to Fayetteville, got transferred, and his classmate was Curry Vaughn, Chaplain Curry Vaughn. And Curry had started this little teaching center, revival center down on Hay Street, and he had orders. So he learned about my name, and so I had just gone to Washington State and driven all over saying, God, where am I to plant a church? And then I drove all over Oregon, got home at midnight, and there was a letter in my mailbox with a postmark, Fayetteville, North Carolina. I looked at that letter and I said, no, Lord, you wouldn't send me to Fayetteville. Anyway, they wanted me to come out. I met them, and they invited me to come. Meanwhile, I had gone to some prophet friends of mine, didn't tell them anything in California, and they prophesied that I was to go. God was using me to plant a church, that it would be like a huge oak tree, that acorns would fall off and other churches would start from it. So then there was no money. The church that sent me out didn't send me any money. In those days, if God called you someplace, God would supply. And so it was a very different era. So we showed up, and I told this little group when they interviewed me and before they invited me that I was here to plant a church. And that's church plant. It's all I breathe. And I don't think that registered with them. So they invited me, and again, there was no salary. I moved here with my 3 kids and just asked God, like, what? And it was a really rough go at first. So I was the first worship leader, which God help them, they're still getting healed. So I'd just taken guitar lessons, but I have no talent. So my wife would write the chord changes for me. And one lady would sit on the front and mock me. And eventually they just said, well, look, let's just turn all this over to Jerry and we'll leave. And they did. And so I had the property on Hay Street and 5 people. And I was overjoyed. And so we began. The vision we had for Manna Church and for every church that we planted is a church that looks like the book of Acts.
By 1985, Manna Church had grown to approximately 350 people. There was a Bible college, there was a Christian school, and what had started with a few people in a downtown home had grown to become an actual church. They acquired property, 5117 Cliffdale Road, and they built a church building with some huts for Sunday school. Boy, I remember those silly little things. Jerry felt the call from God to move to Thailand and began planting churches, and so he needed a replacement. So in January of 1985, he turned over the reins to a Manna University, used to be called Manna Christian College, a Manna University Bible College graduate, a young pastor on staff named Michael Fletcher, or as I like to call him, Dad.
Well, when I first came to Manna Church, Laura took me there, and she thought I would freak out because I had a Catholic background. What she didn't really know is that I'd been to an Assembly of God church, and so I was pretty cool with what happened. I was really impressed with the depth of teaching and the enthusiasm of the worship. See, we went in 1974. The church started in 1972, right in the middle of the Jesus People movement on the one hand and the charismatic movement on the other. So it was so many exciting things were happening in the nation. Things were changing. There was an explosion of faith, really. People started getting born again, and they started learning about their spiritual gifts. It changed church completely. I mean, we were using guitars with capos instead of organs and pianos. The next thing you know, I mean, people come to church in their shorts or their jeans and t-shirts. It was just kind of come as you are, meet with God. It was very exciting. It was very passionate. It was very raw. I mean, somebody could come and join and just join in, and they were embraced and loved, and drug addicts were getting born again and miraculously delivered. And and then you also had the sexual revolution, which was the opposite of what you want to see, of course. And the church, how the church was addressing that and being light and salt and light to that is amazing. You had the Vietnam War and soldiers coming home and all of that. It was a very, very highly what word am I looking for? It's kind of a high pressure kind of time. But at the same time, here it is, Jesus Christ moving in powerful ways. Billy Graham's putting out movies and preaching in giant stadiums, and folks are getting born again. And it was just one of those amazing times in your life. It was a revival, really. To be honest with you, it was revival happening right in front of my eyes in a house on Hay Street, 912 Hay Street. It's a building with a red door. And we packed that place out, and it was just so amazing. I mean, you didn't even hardly had to preach the gospel. If you just preached, people would come forward and give their lives to Christ. Some denominations were saying, we don't want these hippies, and we don't want these, ex-drug addicts, and we don't want these ex-Woodstock people and the free sex people. We don't want those people coming to church. But God did. I mean, He was saving them by the droves. You didn't really have to do anything special. Just hold a meeting, and folks would come out to it, and they'd bring their friends, and there'd be repentance and salvation and life change, and it truly was amazing. It was a really, really cool time to be alive and to be part of the church. I was planning on going to college to NC State and study chemical engineering because it was the highest paying degree, if you want to know the truth, when I was a junior. But God called me to ministry, and when God called me to ministry, it changed my mindset completely. I dropped the whole engineering thing. I went full bore into studying theology. I went to 2 different schools, and I loved it. I loved the learning and the training and all of that. And what that did was it awakened something inside of me. And I'll tell you what happened. As the church was beginning to grow, so the church growth movement was running along beside it. Let me just put it to you like this. So there's all the stuff that's happening in the world. It looks like it's fallen apart and all that. And then God's moving in revival. And then at the same time, there's a movement called the church growth movement. And it wasn't just manipulate people and manipulate numbers, but it's how do you reach people and make disciples better, faster. So what I began to discover was that the Jesus People movement and the charismatic movement and all that, as cool as it was, it tended toward inward looking. I mean, it looked like it caused you to look inside your life. What are my gifts? What's my ministry? What's my opportunity? And so that's where the focus was getting to be, and it was not healthy. So the church growth movement came along and said, wait a minute, master plan of evangelism. God has a plan to win the world to Jesus Christ. And it's very biblical, and we want you to reach people and make disciples and those kinds of things. So I got very interested. Yes, let's turn this ship from being inward, which you couldn't help. I mean, the way that God was moving at the time, it was natural for it to be inward and get healed and get fixed up and get learning the Bible and the ways of God. But then to grab a hold of it and turn it so that all of a sudden, instead of looking at ourselves, we're looking at the world, and there's world missions. And I remember we sent our first missionary, a young little church meeting in a small little building on Hay Street. We sent our first missionary. We were so excited about that. But what that did for me is it awakened something inside of me. I began to read books and study and go to conferences and anything I could do to learn about how the church grows. And God blessed us. And we went from 350 to 400, 425 to 475. We're growing. And somewhere in there, I recognized that every time we got ahead, somebody stuck their hand in our pile and took a bunch of people out. It's called the United States government, the military. So being here at Fort Bragg, it was so cool to be at Fort Bragg. On the one hand, surrounded by all these soldiers, and I grew up as a military brat, so I was very excited to be a part of that. But what really got us was that there's got to be a way to overcome this constant draw called PCS, permanent change of station. So as we looked down the road and said, we believe we can be a church that not only impacts this area, but if we do it right, if we do it with passion, if we're smart about it, if we look ahead and make plans, we could be a part of changing the world. So we began to think, where are the people who aren't reached, and who are the people that don't know God, and how do you reach those people? So we started doing evangelism explosion, evangelism training inside the church, empowering our members to reach out and win people to Christ. It was really a very exciting time. So I was involved with that. Even as a senior pastor, I was involved very much so. I was doing evangelism explosion on Saturdays, evangelism explosion on Thursdays, training our church members to reach out to people. We started seeing new converts come into the church, and then the church really began to take off. And it never was like a rocket, because I'm not a rocket kind of guy. I'm just an average builder. And so we were slowly building and adding mechanisms and adding outreach and learning about outreach and training people and strengthening our small groups and making changes and bringing worship from the one guitar with a capo, and beginning to see some really professionals on the stage and really making a joyful noise to the Lord. It was a really, really exciting time. Our Bible college began to grow, and so we began to train students. We started planting churches. We started reaching out and doing missions. And man, all I can say was, it was like the extension of the revival that was in the early 70s, moved into the late 70s and early 80s, and that's when our church really began to grow. And a result of God's faithfulness and all the great church members that caught the vision to be outward and to reach people close and far away, we grew to 1,000 people, and then we grew to 1,500 people, and then 2,000 and 3,000, way up into the thousands. Eventually we got into the fastest growing church in America list and all that kind of stuff, but that wasn't ever really the point. The point was reaching people who are far away from God. And so we had a passion for that, which means we needed to stay focused on where we were in terms of the growth of the church and the outreach of the church. We started planting other churches and doing missions overseas and sending people on mission trips. It was really a very exciting time, but it took a lot of effort, because the U.S. government kept reaching into our pile of people and taking them out and sending them all over the country. So every year we would take a moment and look back over our shoulder at all the numbers from the year before. How many people did we serve, and how many people got born again, and how many churches have we planted, and how many small groups do we have, and all those types of things. And one day I got that little form. It had all the details on it, and I flipped it over to the back page because I knew that's where the key number was going to be. How many people left us because the military moved them away, or they got out of the military and went back home? In other words, how many people who we had relationships with, who were leading in our church, we loved them, they loved us, they didn't want to go. How many of those people got transferred by the military? That particular year was 1,143 people got transferred to other places. And I remember just sitting in the chair saying, we can't keep doing this. This is exhausting. We need to plant a church near every U.S. military base in the world. When I said that, the whole team, which was the lead team in that room, just kind of paused a moment, looked at each other, and we knew that we had heard from God. We are going to plant a version of Manna Church near every U.S. military base in the world, 273 bases. We're well on our way. We're so excited about that. It's part of our future. Our church just caught it, galvanized around it, and we are presently actively working very hard to establish a church for Jesus Christ near every U.S. military base in the United States of America and abroad. Now, I want to be clear, the real impact of Manna Church is not how many people we have or how many people or churches we planted. It's not that. It's about people, because we believe that everyone has a calling, that they're made on purpose, for a precise reason by a God who loves them very much. And our goal is to help them discover that. And here's the cool thing. As they come to an awareness of who they're called to be and what they're called to do and begin to operate in those gifts, the next thing you know, it's automatic. That's when people come to Christ, and that's when churches get planted, and that's when missionaries get sent out. When people begin to discover, this is who I am, small groups begin to spring up. It's so much fun to shepherd people who know that they've got a destiny. It's so much easier to shepherd people who know they've got a destiny. All they want you to do is tell me, where do I need to go? It's so much fun. This is the most fun we've ever had. The church is at its biggest. It's the most complicated it's ever been, but it's so much fun because the people are so cool and so ready to be steered in the direction of world change, and world change inside, world change on the outside.
So fast forward to 2022, and Manna Church is one church in 25 separate city locations. The vision that Pastor Jerry had of a church that looked like, in his words, the book of Acts, had actually begun to behave very much like a New Testament church, multiplying and spreading all over. Under the leadership of Pastor Michael, my dad, the vision of Multiply, planting a church near every U.S. military base in the world, had become the rallying cry of the many different expressions of Manna Church, now formed and planted with thousands worshiping Jesus every single week. But see, the impact and the legacy of Manna Church is not solely numbers. It's people. Now, every number is a person. It's not just solely numbers. The legacy is an important word because the legacy of Manna Church is the impact on people's lives. And legacy is really an interesting concept. Legacy harkens to days gone by while dictating current actions that will yield a payout in the future. You find legacy in three distinct time periods. Legacy is found in the past, the present, and the future. Legacy builds on the past. Legacy advances in the present, and legacy is solidified in the future. In order to talk about legacy, there's a past reality, a present reality, and a future reality. Now, the Psalms are studied for a number of reasons, but one of the main reasons that I love them is how they record the legacy of God. God's people telling of His wonders and miracles and the legacy of their past. The authors of the various Psalms record a rich tradition of writing down the legacy of the Lord's deeds and His deliverance and His attention. Let's look at Psalm chapter 1, verse 9. The writer says, "I will give thanks to the Lord with my whole heart." Watch it, here it comes. "I will recount all of your wonderful deeds." It goes on in verse 6 to say, "The enemy came to an end in everlasting ruins. Their cities you rooted out." Watch this. "The very memory of them has perished." Then there's Psalm 77. This is a psalm that I'm going to reference again in a moment, but first, the psalmist looks back and says, verse 5, "I consider the days of old, the years long ago." Then he says in verse 11, "I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your wonders of old." And finally, Psalm 90, one of my favorite psalms, written by a guy who knew the Lord pretty well. "Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever you had formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God." I said this was somebody who knows the Lord pretty well. These are the words of Moses, a man who spoke to God face to face as a man speaks to his friend. These psalms put me in this headspace where I recognize that to understand legacy, you have to start looking back. You start by honoring the past. What does that mean? It means that you honor where you came from. if you're alive, there's something back there for you to honor. Now, I want to clarify what I'm saying because you could miss it. Honor the past doesn't mean to honor the actions of all the humans that are back there, but it means to honor the hand of God that has preserved you until today. It means to honor that God clearly had a plan. You're right here, right now. You're right there on the other side of this screen. You honor the hand of God. And the first thing we do in honoring, or the second thing that we do, I just said the first and I told you the first. The second thing that we do in legacy and honoring the past is that we worship God. If you're alive today, then He deserves praise. But in looking back, you also have the present reality. It's almost as if I look back, my eyes look back to the past as I stand in the present with the future over my shoulder. It's kind of an odd way to think about it, but we deal with what's happening right now. So I'm going to go back to Psalm 77. Now, I went out of order because, as is tradition in the Psalms, there's trouble. As is typical with Psalms, there's warfare in the midst of this praise fest. Psalm 77 verse 2 says, "In the day of my trouble, I seek the Lord. In the night, my hand is stretched out without wearying." I just told you there's trouble. But it's not just in the days of trouble. In the present reality, there are good days and there are days of trouble, just like in the past and just like there will be in the future. But see, as legacy is being formed, we honor the past and worship God for what He did back then, but there's a past and present reality happening at the same time. This shows itself at the very initiation of the law when the Lord delivered His people from bondage in Egypt. As the 10th and final plague was about to descend, He instructed His people to observe a Passover celebration to commemorate His deliverance from bondage in Egypt. When the Passover was instituted in Exodus, Moses instructed the people in Exodus chapter 13, verse 8, "You shall tell your children on that day." What day? The day that you celebrate Passover, the day that you celebrate in the present the deliverance of the Lord in the past. He says, "You shall tell your children on that day, it is because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt." This was baked in the very fabric of the law. Legacy starts back there, but it impacts today. Legacy began behind me, but must be carried into today, and it must dictate actions in my present reality. So to continue legacy, you have to do a couple of things. The first is worship God. You're sensing a theme that's beginning to develop here. It's all Him. Worship is the only eternal action happening in the temporal. We worship Him for what He's done, and we worship Him for what He's doing. And the second thing that we do is we keep moving forward. To continue a legacy that's begun in the past, we have to be walking towards the future. Legacy from the past without action in the future is the stuff of encyclopedias. It's how legacy turns into old stories of the good old days. There has to be forward movement. And so legacy leads us into the future. So what's our future? I go back to the Psalms. Psalm 34, verse 4, "I sought the Lord, and He answered me." I sought the Lord, and He answered me. The thing I love about the Psalms is the honoring of the past, while regardless of what's happening in the present, plenty of times there's trouble in the midst of a psalm in the present, there's always the release. Where David, where Moses, where the sons of Asaph, where all the people who wrote the Psalms come back to the idea that, "And you deliver me." Regardless of how He chooses to deliver me, there's always deliverance on the other side of the legacy that He's forming in my life in the present. Always. Whether I understand it, whether it was always my plan, whether it was always my desire, deliverance always comes. It says in Psalm 23, verse 4, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." Why? Emphasis my own, underlined, "For you are with me." The legacy of the future is that we go with Him. He's with us. It reminds me of the children of Israel walking into the promised land. Moses actually This is before Moses has passed, and Moses says, look, if you're not going to go with us, then I'm not going to go up. I'm not going to the promised land because there's nothing about the legacy of the future that's worth anything unless I go with you. Which is why the first thing that we do in honoring the past is to worship God. The second thing that we do when honoring the present is that we worship God because it's all about Him. And the beauty of the legacy that He's called us to is a legacy of with Him. The final scripture that I've got for you in this section is Jeremiah 31, verses 33 and 34. This is one of my absolute favorites. I get emotional reading it because I think about what this promise realized feels like in my own life. I'll read it to you. Verse 33, I'll put my law within them, and I'll write it on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And no longer shall each one teach his neighbor and each one his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest, declares the Lord. For I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more. As Manna Church celebrates its 50th anniversary, this is the heartbeat that beats inside each and every one of our chests. The desire for people to know God because of the promise that He will be our God and we will be His people. And no longer will there be any need for us to teach others. He Himself will be our God. We see this promise in the book of Revelation. When all is done and the judgment has taken place and we are together with Him forever in the light of His presence. The future of this legacy is cemented by two things. You knew it was coming. Worship God. This is the constant. This is why we were created. We were created to make Him known here in the present reality, but to worship Him forever. To be His people. His people worship Him in the present of what He's done. They worship Him in the past, and they worship Him for what He's doing and will continue to do into the future. And the second thing, we're promised an eternity in His presence. The end of the game is an eternity with Him. And we do well to live with the eternal in our hearts, to always have the gaze of the eternal, to look at life through the gaze of legacy, knowing that we'll spend an eternity with Him, to know that everything about this life is really a flash in the pan compared to the eternity that we're promised with Him forever. So Manna Church turns 50, and today we honor the past, and we worship God for all that He's done in and through all of the heroes who have brought us to where we are today. All the lives changed, all the destinies altered, all the impact in our city, all the impact in our region, and all the impact of the uttermost parts of the earth. Why? All because Jesus is alive. And it's been our heart to equip people to change the world from the beginning. And look what God has done. Today we honor the past while standing in the present, determined to worship God and honor Him for what He's doing today. The Manna Church of 2022 remains a church committed to sharing the gospel. Over 500 people made decisions to follow Jesus before May 1st, sitting in one of our services or watching Manna online. Did you know that you sit in one of the most effective outreach tools that Manna Church possesses? In 2022, 28% of unbelieving guests who've attended Manna Church have made decisions for Christ. God is working through our services. You might even argue God is working through our physical buildings. We remain committed to making it hard to go to hell from Fayetteville, Fort Bragg, from the surrounding regions, and all across the world in the most difficult and hard to reach places. Today, we affirm our commitment to church planting on the military highway, to equipping people in the growth track, and to support church planting in the 167 countries in which we currently work. So where are we going? The same place we've been going. Preach the gospel, equip people, plant churches. Manna Church is built on the legacy that the presence of God, the Holy Spirit, is working and moving through ordinary people. If you can hear me right now, God has a plan for you and hell can't stop it. There's a purpose for which you were created, a destiny, and a promise that mean that the Lord created you by hand and placed you in history for such a time as this. You're known in heaven, you're feared in hell, and you're a world changer. As a church, we're going to worship Him into our future as we worship Him for our past, believing Him to bring us into our destiny. Let me pray for you. Jesus, thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for your work on the cross. We honor you for everything that you've done in and through Manna Church and the people of Manna Church. And Lord, as we stand before you today, we commit to being yours. We commit to following you. We commit to laying ourselves on the altar of what you have planned, both here in the regions in which we live, in our homes, in our small groups, in our network of relationships, and all across the globe, to win for you the reward of your suffering by equipping people and planting churches. I ask that each and every person listening right now, Lord, would hear especially from you which piece of the destiny that you've called us to is theirs to own. When you called your people into the promised land, each and every person, I'm reminded of Caleb saying, I want that hill. Reminded of Joshua saying, I'll take that land. All the tribes, every single person had their place in the destiny of the promise that you have for them. Lord, may each and every one of us grab hold of the purpose and the destiny for which you've called us and walk into that. In Jesus' name, amen. You know, another moment, another prayer, as I consider destiny and I think about the call of God and the call of God that he has for each and every one of you, that call begins by surrendering to his Son as Savior. When Jesus was with us, he told his disciples, it's recorded in the Gospels, he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father, hear the key words, but by me. You see, I love Jesus because Jesus' love, Jesus' mercy, Jesus' grace, Jesus' sacrifice is perfect because it's all encompassing. Meaning, the thing that you have to decide for your future walk with God is what are you going to do with Jesus? The only way to a right relationship with God is through Jesus. It's not by being good enough. It's not by knowing enough. That's actually some weight off your shoulders a little bit. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to perfectly craft your greatest theological polemic. I don't even know if you could define what polemic is. I certainly can't. The thing is to surrender to Jesus, to live in relationship with Jesus. So as I talk to you right now, if you feel uncomfortable, if you feel like that you're kind of describing my situation. I mean, I want to be good. I know there's more for me, but I don't have a relationship with God. I don't have a relationship with Jesus. Then if that's you, I want to ask you for a really simple action step. I want you to text the word Jesus to the number that you see on the screen right now. You're not joining anything. There's no magic with that. You're just letting our team know that you've made this decision. This allows us to help resource you with some things to solidify this journey with Jesus to take your next steps. There'd be no greater joy than on the weekend of Manna Church's 50th anniversary to honor the most amazing thing that Jesus continues to do through Manna Church, and that is the legacy of life change that begins by surrendering to Jesus. What an amazing weekend for you to celebrate this change in your life. So if that's you, text the word Jesus to the number that you see on the screen, and then I want you to repeat this prayer after me. I want you to say, Jesus, thank you for your sacrifice on the cross. I'm a sinner. I need a Savior. Please come into my heart. Please forgive my sin. Please be the Lord of my life, and I'll follow you all the days of my life. In Jesus' name, amen. Let us know if you prayed that prayer. Text Jesus to the number that you see on the screen. That's going to set off all kinds of alarm bells, and it's going to empower our team to send you some amazing resources to help solidify this journey with Jesus. Love you so much. I can't wait to see you back here next week. We're going to start a series I've been looking forward to for a long time, Daniel. We might talk about lions' dens. We probably won't, but you never know. It's an amazing story. So we'll see you right back here next week for part 1 of Daniel.
Manna Church, we thank you so much for being a part of our service today. We wouldn't want to celebrate 50 years of doing ministry with anyone else. And if you are a guest with us today, thank you so much for being with us as well. If you would like prayer for a specific area in your life, please text the word prayer to the number that you see on your screen. We would be honored to come alongside you in prayer or simply stand in the gap for someone you are praying for. Next week, we will be starting a brand new series where we will be diving into the book of Daniel. Ooh, God bless you, Manna Church, and we'll see you right back here next week.
We are the body of Christ.
society where it's hard to get a decent job without a college education. But let's be honest, a piece of paper isn't the only thing that lands you a job. Employers want people that have education and experience. The Experience is a full-time college internship that combines both formal academics with practical hands-on training outside of the classroom. While in the Experience, students take accredited Bible classes at one of the top 20 Christian colleges in the nation, while gaining world-class leadership training from one of the nation's largest and fastest-growing churches. With several degree programs and track options available, the Experience allows you to tailor the internship around your personal and professional goals. So maybe you're a young adult looking to pursue vocational ministry. Or maybe you're just looking to gain some professional skills and strengthen your biblical understanding before chasing after your dream. Either way, the Experience can help you forge a foundation of faith, character, and leadership to equip you for the road ahead.